Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Thanks to everyone who's supporting my channel. Be sure to view all the links in the description box to catch up with me. So let's get into it. Janet Hubert made an appearance on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion, and I've seen a lot of comments about Will and her finally getting a chance to talk and hash things out, and her having the ability to say the things that she wanted to say about what had happened and her journey and the things that were going on with her, and for Will to say, his piece as well. And so that had me thinking, is it necessary to bury the hatchet with someone, to make peace with someone in order to move forward? Um, and that's a tricky question. I think personally, for me, and I can only speak on my personal, like I always like to speak from my personal experience, it depends on the situation. There are people in my life who have been in my life that I recognize that they were only there for a particular season. And so, because they were there for only a particular season, if there was any rift or anything that had taken place, for me, it's not necessary to reconnect with that person and to say, certain things to them. I feel as if certain things should just remain as they are. And, because the person may be too toxic to have that conversation. Obviously, when we're talking about Will and Janet, it appears that growth had taken place on both of their parts so that an adult conversation could take place. But for me, there are some people that it's best that I never, have a dialogue with them. And it's not healthy for me to have a dialogue with them. And it's not healthy for me to go back and, be in their presence. In particular, there's someone in life that I thought that I could never, ever, 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 ever see myself moving forward without their presence. And that's just the truth. And when I began life without them there, I realized so much about myself that, you know what? I can motivate myself. I don't need this person there. And I realized that I don't have to sit down and have a closure session with someone in order for me to have a good life. Sometimes your closure comes from your growth from a situation. And I know everyone is different, but for me personally, there are certain people that I feel like I don't want to sit down with. And that's perfectly okay. I think we create this culture where we tell people you have to make amends, or you have to sit down and you have to talk things out with a person all the time. And sometimes that's just not feasible. Sometimes that's not the best thing to do. Sometimes the people haven't demonstrated, both parties haven't demonstrated a certain amount of growth. And for me in this particular situation, when I thought that I could not live life without this person, without their presence being there to inspire me, now I look back and I was at myself and I was like, well, how dare you limit your own growth by thinking this person's presence had to be there in order for you to grow? And in the years that I've been separated from that person, having their presence in my life, I have grown in all types of ways. And their presence wasn't needed. And sometimes the universe separates you from people to show you your level of growth and your level of potential, because sometimes a person's presence in your life can be a handicap and you're not even aware of it. And it doesn't necessarily mean the relationship that you had with that person was toxic. It just means that if someone is always helping you, someone is always giving you insight, someone is always telling you certain things, and you're listening and holding on to those things, then where is your opportunity for growth and development to come in? When are you trusting yourself enough to speak into your own existence? And so for me, I realize that I have grown leaps and bounds, just when it comes to myself spiritually, when it comes to my personal philosophies, when it comes to being taking risks. And these are things that I would not have done if this particular person was still in my life, because I would have limited myself to I would have limited myself. And I think the universe knew that. The universe knew, okay, I kept you here for a moment because there were certain things you had to learn, but now I need to break you from that. And the universe broke me from that individual in the situation. Now, do I feel like I need to sit down and have a conversation with them? No, not really. I still casually say hello, how are you doing? But I don't feel the need to have a conversation with the person. You know, my heart isn't hurting. I'm not falling over. I'm okay. And I feel like if you're okay, you may not necessarily need to reopen the past or revisit the past. Now let's flip this in terms of toxic situations, because that situation I just described wasn't toxic. But let's flip this into a toxic situation. When we're talking about things that are toxic, you know, I will use extreme caution in reconnecting with people. Because if someone has not grown and developed, you could end up causing yourself harm by reconnecting with them or attempting to reconnecting with them. Yeah, I know all of us are familiar with that phrase, love someone from a distance, and sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to love people from a distance and keep it moving. Now, there are instances where, with Will and Janet, where growth and development had taken place on both sides and they could finally come together and sit down and talk. I would say that an example of that in my life has been with my daughter's father. We co-parent our child extremely well. It was not always, I wouldn't say that we wouldn't always co-parent, but I would say our relationship took both of us to grow. And we got to a point to where, you know, we are very extremely cordial and extremely respectful of one another. And, you know, we had a conversation, and that conversation I ended up writing an article about how he supported me when I had became ill. When I initially was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I became ill, and he was very supportive of me. And so in that interview, I asked him a lot of questions. And so if I can remember, I'll put the link to that interview article in the description box. But that's an example of where, you know, two people go back and recognize what's going on, and they find a way to move forward, because we have a child together, and we will always, until we leave this earth, forever would have been two people who had a child together. And so it's very important that for that relationship that we did grow, and that we do have the conversations, and then we do talk. Now, we don't have these in-depth conversations because we both have our own lives, but we talk in regards about our child, and we do it in a respectable manner because we're parents. We'll forever be her mom and dad, and so we're parents. And so in that context of being parents, we have worked on our relationship together. There are some instances where you want to sit down and tell that person, hey, this is what I went through, this is how you made me feel. Or an instance where you want to sit down and apologize to someone and say, hey, I'm sorry I treated you this way. But one thing you have to understand is that those situations may not always present themselves to you. And a lot of times, a lot of people have to figure out how to heal and move forward without getting that level of closure. And if you are that person, it's absolutely okay. You don't need to rehash certain things in your past in order to be able to move forward. You don't have to make quote unquote peace with someone else in order to move forward, because sometimes that peace that you need to make is really with yourself and not the other person. Sometimes we have to forgive ourselves for our past mistakes. We have to learn how to trust ourselves again and move forward. And sometimes we have to accept that the person that maybe we wronged doesn't want to talk to us anymore. Sometimes you have to accept that the person who wronged you is never going to apologize. And that means that the squashing of the beef and the coming to terms with things are things that you have to do internally. So that's all I have to say about that. If there's any particular topic that you would like for me to cover, just leave it in the comment section. And until next time, bye.